Hey guys, welcome back. Andrew here with Ambient Endeavors, and today we're checking out the Origin Effects DCX Boost. So Origin Effects are builders over in the UK. They kind of made their name by capturing some of the functionality and circuitry of some vintage and iconic studio pieces. They launched with their Cali 76, which kind of was a pedal-friendly recreation of the 1176 compressor, and they've continued on in that line now recently, and this is the latest in that offering. I kind of was reintroduced to Origin Effects through this pedal, the MEQ driver. You've probably seen it on videos over on Instagram or here. I've really enjoyed this pedal as sort of the mid-focused piece in my drive section. I've never been a huge Tube Screamer fan, and that's kind of the calling card for that pedal, that big mid-range hump. But with the MEQ driver, you really get a bunch of control over your mids. You can kind of tailor them, focus them in specific ways, and I just have loved this pedal as an overdrive and kind of a tone shaper. So I got excited to check out the DCX Boost as I'm kind of like leaning more into these lower gain EQ, tone shaping, preamp, overdrive type pedals, and this one is just fantastic in a lot of different settings and has been a mainstay at the front of my drive section on my board for a few weeks now since getting it in. The DCX Boost is meant to capture the old UA610 preamp, a studio preamp, and while I'm not a huge knowledge base or aficionado of old studio gear, it's not going to be a comparative video, but we are going to talk about just some of the ways that this pedal and this circuit excel for you in your drive section, using it as a powerful EQ tool, using it as a low gain kind of always on texture or clean sound, and also using it just as an overdrive or sort of a saturation pedal. It does wonders in all three of those contexts. It really can help to refining and shaping the EQ and the tone of various guitars coming into your pedal board if you're switching out guitars for different contexts. And it's just a really awesome piece for your pedal board. So we're going to dive in, talk about the features, talk about the pedal, and then you'll get to hear an extended bit of sound samples with a few different guitars in some different contexts and turning the knobs to kind of flex the strengths of this pedal. So it's kind of divided into top bottom. The top row, you have a level control, which is your volume, and a drive control, which affects the overall drive or saturation of the pedal. And you've got two different modes. You have an EQ mode, which stays really clean, sort of from clean textural EQ mode into a little bit of light overdrive saturation. And then in overdrive mode, you really get a wider range for your overdrive sounds into, near kind of console type fuzz sounds if you really go hard on the drive. And then in the bottom row, you have a low filter and a high filter. The low, as you go counterclockwise, will dial out some of the low end, and to the right you get a more pushed low end. And then on the right side here, you have the high frequency, which is a similar control, just with the high end. So at noon, you have a flat response. As you dial it up, you get more accentuated, brighter highs, and dialing it back will smooth out that high end. You have a voice control, which affects the high end response. In the middle, you have flat, which has no effect on the high end. To the right, you have medium, which has a slight kind of smoothing of the high end. And then to the left, you have dark, which has the most severe, kind of most aggressive smoothing of that high end. The controls on the bottom here that affect the EQ are really well voiced and tailored. So even when you're pushing those low frequencies or pushing the high frequencies, you really don't get a muddy sound or an overly bright, piercing, harsh sound. It's really smooth, really well refined. One of the really cool things that Origin introduced in the MEQ driver and also in this pedal is their adaptive circuitry. So basically it has to do with sort of a dynamic response of your high end. As you dig in and as you kind of push the pedal into higher gain sounds, it will automatically smooth out some of that high end that can tend to be harsh or overly aggressive in higher gain settings. So it does that for you automatically, and then as you lighten your attack, as you play a little bit cleaner, you retain some of those high-end textures. They stay clear and sparkly and kind of come back in a more pronounced way as you lighten your playing, as you kind of clean up that circuit. So it's a really cool feature of these pedals. It really helps kind of do that extra little bit of refining to your sound, even on the fly as you're playing and digging in or pulling back on your right hand there. So that's it. This is the DCX Boost. We're gonna plug it in on the board. We're gonna switch over to a top down and just hear a bunch of sound samples from this pedal and get to feel and hear the range of tones you can get with this powerful EQ section, with the two different modes going from EQ to overdrive mode, and hearing the range from clean all the way up to saturated overdrive fuzz sounds. We're also going to switch in a few different guitars, and I'll note that in the videos we do to kind of show, you know, how you can use this pedal as a tone shaper, as sort of a refining EQ section based on what guitar you're playing. You know, sometimes I switch over to a Tele and everything just sounds really thin and brittle. Sometimes I plug in a Les Paul and everything's just like too low mid, too like muddy or rumbly, and a pedal like this can really help make some refinements and tweaks to that signal from your guitar coming in, and kind of set it on the right path going into your overdrives and your wet effects. So take a listen to that. We're going to run this at the front of the board, incorporate maybe a drive or two. I've got the Strymon Volante as my delay and the Strymon Flint as my reverb. We're running into a UA Dream 65 for the amp. Check it out.
you.